The row of patchwork squares traditionally represents fields of rice or grain. It is an important symbol of the signlessness of teaching, the Dharma, a simple daily life. We take refuge in the Buddha. We take refuge in the Dharma. We take refuge in the Sangha. As we continue with the third talk, I would like to read a summary of the key teachings from the Lanka. Teachings within the Lanka cover a wide range of Mahayana concepts cast within the Yogacara, mind only, and the Tathagatagarbha, Buddha nature context. Throughout, the stress is on attaining the inter-enlightenment that thoroughly understands the illusory nature of all duality and distinctions. The many teachings include the major teaching that a bodhisattva is expected to be conversant with, the nature of the purification of the mind, the bodhisattva path and its 10 stages, the meaning of emptiness, the teaching method of a Buddha, the nature of consciousness, the nature of the path to liberation, the difference between nirvana and enlightenment, the cultivation of Buddha knowledge, the 3 bodies of the Buddha, what mind only means, the 2 kinds of no self, what bodhisattvas are to teach others, the nature of causation, the 3 means of knowledge, the 2 modes of reality, the meaning of silence when teaching, the use of skillful means, the nature of the 10 delusions, the use of words and phrases, the one path teaching, and the goal of practice. Friends, did someone just turn the light switch on? All of a sudden I can feel a current. I can see the light. This sutra is for advanced bodhisattvas. It has been said that many of these teachings are so subtle that it is very difficult to be realized by anybody but Buddhas and bodhisattvas on the bhumis, which is the 10 stages of the bodhisattva path. And yes, this sutra is also for us. We have been handed a map that has no boundaries. There's an arrow pointing to you are here, and it is different for each of us. We take refuge in the Buddha. We take refuge in the Dharma. We take refuge in the Sangha. The task in practice is to place one's mind on awareness itself and forget words and thoughts, which is Zazen. In the text, this process of dissembling words and thoughts is perhaps most clearly demonstrated by the Buddha's continued use of contradictions. In D.T. Suzuki's words, the one most important thing that students of Buddhism have to realize at the very outset of their study is that Buddhism is not a system of philosophy, has nothing to do with speculation as such, has no intention to present a logically coherent formula of thought. What the Buddhist teaching professes to do is to get us truthfully acquainted with the ultimate facts of existence. The purpose of the Lanka is highly practical, even though it appears to be abstract. One important component is the intuitive element, the inner perception of the deepest truth, which goes beyond language and reasoning. Tom Graham, who translated Describing the Indescribable, said, "Buddhism is a profound spiritual tradition based on principles deeper than the surface of any language or even language itself." It has been said, self-realization can begin anywhere, with any thought, or in silence. We must learn to be patient and continue to be compassionately patient, step by step. When responding to Mahamati's questions, the Buddha said, "Today I will reveal truths that transcend words. While I list them one by one, listen well, you bodhisattvas, to these 108 statements as spoken by the Buddhas of the past." Mahamati, such fools say things like this: "The meaning is like the words. Words and meanings are not separate. And how so? Because meaning has no substance. There is no meaning outside of words, but only what resides in words." Mahamati, those in possession of such immature wisdom, do not understand the essential nature of words. They do not understand that words arise and cease, while meaning does not arise and cease. Mahamati, all words are dependent on language. Meaning is not because it transcends existence and non-existence. It is not subject to arising, and it has no substance. Mahamati, the Tathagatas do not teach teachings dependent on language, because what exists or does not exist cannot be found in language, but only by those who do not depend on language. I keep coming back to the question beneath the question, in this case, approximately 108 questions. The Lanka in these 108 questions are custom designed to different levels of understanding of practitioners. We all can explore the truth right where we are right now. That is what we are doing today. The multiple angles and perspective aid each of us with a diverse level of insight. The Buddha said, "A statement about words is no words." Mahamati, these 108 answers were spoken by the Buddhas of the past. They are what you and other bodhisattvas should study. In Blessed Red Pines, footnote 127, that comes to our aid, which says, "The reasons bodhisattvas should study this is whatever they think of as real as not real will free them from the fabrication or projection of reality and prepare them for the personal realization of what Buddhas know." In other words, the Buddha is suggesting that we take what we consider to be not real to be real. This will free us from the fabrication of reality. The Dharma is conscious knowledge of truth. It teaches us how to be aware and what to be aware of. It is found by entering the wisdom realm that transcends distinctions. One of the 108 questions and answers concerns grasping and no grasping. How do we function when we come face to face with knowing what grasp and what is grasped? Our response brings forth the understanding the illusory nature of perceived separation by recognizing the mind is the primary source of experience, evolving forms and appearances we perceive. True insight requires transcending dualistic thinking that creates distinctions between subject and object. It is essential to recognize the illusory nature of phenomena, or all things, and understand the lack of inherent independent self-nature. When we recognize and transcend opposites as presented as aspects of the same thing, this can lead to liberation from the cycle of suffering. In the context of the Lanka, to transcend refers to the realization of a profound truth that goes beyond ordinary conceptual understanding and dualistic thought. It refers to recognizing mind only, the ultimately mind only, to overcome the distinction between the mind that conceives and the object it imagines. It requires us to move beyond the fixed idea of existence and non-existence, as both are seen as products of conceptual thought. We need to cultivate noble wisdom, which is an intuitive understanding that penetrates our superficial view of existence, revealing fundamental truth. The Lanka says to transcend, we are encouraged to cultivate inner wisdom and achieve self-realization through direct experience rather than solely relying on intellectual understanding. When we abandon dualistic thinking and embrace oneness, we transcend with a state of tranquility and deep meditation. This inner transformation emphasizes freeing oneself from hindrances. And understanding emptiness is a must for liberation from suffering. These 108 questions and answers in the Lanka cover a broad spectrum of many key aspects of our practice. To name a few: mind only, Buddha nature, the illusory nature of duality, purification of the mind, the meaning of emptiness, the nature of consciousness, the repository consciousness. And as far as I can tell, they are all interconnected and in harmony, and they function as a whole with the above labeled components as parts. Also within these 108 questions, the Bodhisattva Mahamati seeks clarification and resolve about the nature of reality and perception, the limitation of language and concepts, and how they can be a barrier to understanding to the truth for ourselves, how they can be a barrier to the understanding the projections of the mind. Mahamati seeks guidance on how to transcend the limitations of the mind. He seeks guidance from a realized teacher, a master, for guidance on the path of self-realization and enlightenment. I think Mahamati has a good karma in full swing right here. Undivided mind transcends opposites. In Buddhist practice, study of the mind is the way to attain stable, undivided action beyond the world of relativity. We accept things as they come, independent and momentary. It is fitting here to reference Great Master Dogen's Chapter 52, Mitsugo, on the heart-to-heart language of intimacy, where Great Master Dogen is writing about the gate that is wide open. It seems the only way to enter is to listen with your heart, with your eyes, your feet, your nose, your hands and ears, body and mind dropping off the self. What is open is that which is steadfast, unmoving, clear, bright, constant knowing. Letters and forms give a positive significance in the total scheme of spiritual things. No longer a means to an end, rather a means that embody the end within. Great Master Dogen points us directly to skillful, radical use of language. The awakening of faith says, The purpose of the Lord Tathagata is to emancipate sentient beings from the bondage of their thinking by means of their thinking, and to bring them back to their origin of mind essence. But to let the mind dwell upon and grasp words and concept only entangles the mind the more in the cycle of death and rebirth, and hinders it from merging into its true nature of wisdom. So we meditate, so we train, so we come to realize that which we already know, that our true nature is unborn, undying, uncreated, unchanging. Just do it with as much kindness, integrity, and skillful means currently possible. Really listen and learn from the process. I am gently saying words for the benefit of all things. More importantly, I trust everyone will practice diligently and grow compassionate and wisdom unhindered. What is important is to keep an open heart, to be gentle, and to explore the richness of our everyday life. Since the Lanka was pivotal in the development of early Zen, its emphasis on the all-importance of putting the teachings into practice beyond words and letters to acquire final realization is not unexpected. According to D.T. Suzuki, this side of the sutra, the mind-only teaching, is incidental, its chief theme being the doctrine of self-realization. Red Pine presents the same idea using the Zen metaphor of the difference between a cup of tea, the teachings, and tasting the tea. Excuse me. It is not sufficient to have a cup of tea in your hand. You must taste the tea. It is useful to think of the elements that make up the cup itself as the myriad concepts of Mahayana Buddhism, many of which have been mentioned today. If the elements that make up the cup do not congeal smoothly into the form of a usable cup, the jumble of elements will not hold tea. Of course, most practitioners find that understanding this myriad of concepts in depth without a guidance of a master is extremely difficult. For the less accomplished, their cup might never hold tea, at least in their present lifetime. As bodhisattvas advance in their training, they find that tasting the tea is more difficult than molding the cup. In the Lanka, tea comes in 10 different graded flavors that become increasingly difficult to discern as one moves from the first to the 10th flavor. These are the 10 stages, the bhumis, of the bodhisattva path. The first to the 10th, the stages are perfect joy, the initial stage in which bodhisattvas embark on the path towards enlightenment and has their first perception of truth, of reality, emptiness. 2, the stainless, which one becomes free of all defilements. 3, the luminous, in which one strengthens and deepens their insight and patience through meditation. 4, the radiant intellect, during which all good qualities are pursued and laziness eradicated. 5, the hard to conquer, is an arduous stage in which bodhisattvas devote himself to his own development and to the welfare of others. 6, facing forward, in which great wisdom is attained and insight into true nature of all phenomena is gained. Number 7 is going far, during which one gains the power of skillful means, and there is nothing but mind. 8, immovable, during which it is no longer possible to fall back and one is free of projections. 9, the good, is the stage in which a bodhisattva begins to preach the doctrine and convert other beings. 10. Cloud of the Dharma, or Tathagata stage of self-realization, during which a bodhisattva reaches full perfection and becomes a fully enlightened Buddha. Each stage has its own practice and is a very different strength of tea, whose flavor may take an increasingly number of years, if not countless, to fully discern. Thus, the Bodhidharma's 9 years facing the wall. What this means to us is to sit unflaggingly on your cushion in the meditation hall. Meditate diligently on all postures throughout the day and night, sitting, laying down, standing, or walking, one step at a time in the present moment. So how may we apply these 10 stages of a bodhisattva to our daily life, our practice? The Lanka touches upon the 10 stages, yet in not a traditional manner of sequence that was taught before the Lanka existed. Let me try that again. The Lanka touches upon the 10 stages, yet not in the traditional sequence that was taught before the Lanka existed. Rather, there's a particular focus on the last 3 stages, the immovable, the good, and the cloud of the Dharma. This suggests that a foundational understanding of full progression is assumed and is necessary. It has been suggested that the Lanka focuses from the 8th bhumi onwards, emphasizing a transition to imagelessness and transcendental intelligence. The Lanka often presents a more direct and experimental approach to liberation, emphasizing the realization of mind only and the purification of consciousness, rather than a sequential progression through stages. Another way of saying it, accent is on the realization of ultimate reality and direct attainment of enlightenment. The Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. Nothing but mind and no projections. This abode and the Buddhist stage. These are what Tathagatas teach, past, present, and those to come. Nothing but mind in the 7th stage, no projections in the 8th. Of the 2 stages where I dwell, the Buddha stage is supreme. Self-realization and purity, these make up my world. In the highest heaven of heavens, adorned with the purest forms. With the blazing fire of knowledge, filling all directions with light, with a radiance that does not blind, I appear throughout the 3 realms. I appear in the present world, I appear in the worlds gone by. The path I teach in each all lead to the Buddha stage. The 10th stage thus becomes the first. The first becomes the 8th. The 9th becomes the 7th. And the 7th becomes the 8th. The Buddha continues. The 2nd becomes the 3rd. The 4th becomes the 5th. The 3rd becomes the 6th. But which is free from projections? The Buddha said, there is nothing that actually arises or ceases. The sequence of stages and all phenomena in the 3 realms are nothing but perceptions of one's own mind. But fools are unaware of this, and because they are unaware, I and other Buddhas talk about a sequence of stages and talk about the phenomena of the 3 realms. Thank you. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha.